Welcome to Mo's World, the baseball podcast. We're excited to bring you our latest episode. Your feedback is important to us, so please feel free to share your comments. Awesome. If you enjoy the podcast, spread the word to your friends. In our 26th episode of Season 2, we are going to talk just a little about the All-Star Game and the concept of the Old Timers Day. So, what did you think of the All-Star Game? You know, I still think if you are voted in, you should stay in the game at least 3 innings, especially if you are playing in your home team's park. Ronald Acuna Jr. just seemed to disappear in last night's game. He was there, and then poof, he was gone. You know, they kind of gave time for, I don't know. It almost looked like, they were rubbing it in on the fact that they don't have Freddie Freeman anymore. I don't know. But what do you think? Did you like the new home run swing-off format? You know, the game was kind of boring for the first 5 innings. It kind of looked like a typical Yankee game. But then I realized, that made perfect sense. Aaron Boone was managing. Say, you gotta admit, the new swing-off is a hell of a lot better than a stupid tie. Remember the 2002 Major League Baseball All-Star Game that ended in a tie due to a lack of available players? Holy shit, that was a fiasco. You know, that game was in Miller Park in Milwaukee, and it went into extra innings after a 7-7 tie. However, after 11 innings, both teams had no players. They had no pitches. And the managers decided, let's just end the game. That was incredible, you know? So this wacky outcome led to all kinds of discussions about the format of the All-Star Game, you know, and how changes could be made. And it was a big topic. So the tie really was notable because that was the first time in an All-Star Game which ended without a winner since the game's inception in 1933. But, you know, extra inning games in an All-Star Game, that's stupid in my opinion anyway. This is a great idea, you know, but a few changes are needed. Like, why did we not see Aaron Judge or Cal Raleigh available for the American League in the swing-off? Or even, you know, Shohei Ohtani? Well, it seems Aaron Boone's decision, which I heard, was to not select Aaron Judge or Cal Raleigh, was because of player availability and predetermined lineups and strategy. So what the hell? What did he say? Well, it seems like both Aaron Judge and Cal Raleigh, along with some, you know, other star players, they already left the game. Holy shit. By the time the swing-off was announced, they were gone. Many starters, including Judge, Shohei Ohtani, they opted to leave early. And the press release comment was they're likely to spend time with their families during the All-Star break. Are you fucking kidding me? So, you know, this early exit meant that they weren't available for the swing-off, which was a surprise to many fans who expected to see the league's top hitters compete. You know, that to me is pretty stupid. Knowing this new format was coming in advance, the players have plenty of time to bond with their freaking families. Jeez. And this predetermined lineup shit? The players for the swing-off were predetermined by the managers before the game. So Boone selects Brent Rooker, Randy Arozarena, and Jonathan Aranda. Wow. Are you kidding? They looked at so many players that could have made better impacts, I think. And this decision was based on the player availability. And it was prior to the game. So even Pete Alonso later said that the home run derby participants was set in advance. He meant the tie-breaking thing, So are you freaking kidding me? Major League Baseball, are you smoking crack? What? You come up with this new exciting platform and not all the players are available? That's like a player being pinch hit for in the 7th inning and he leaves the stadium. What the fuck? Seriously? Do you think fans want to see Aaron Judge and Cal Raleigh take some swings and Shohei Ohtani? I mean, hello, Newton. And then they said this was based on strategic choices. Okay, how are you going to explain this one? So Boone selections, of course, they were met with lots of skepticism, especially since Jonathan Aranda, he had 11 home runs at that point, and he's chosen over Judge and Raleigh? Stupid. It scarred the whole new concept. The new format is cool, but in the future, the decision should be made at that moment. The game is tied, they're going into extra innings. Okay, who do you choose? Base it on if the player had a home run during the game or somebody's got 3 hits and it's stroking like crazy. Maybe the hot player you want to take. That's what makes it exciting. It'd be like a penalty shot in hockey. Choose the player on the spot and they all have to remain on the bench. Duh. Simple as that. But, the Atlanta events, they were awesome. And I don't know who came to town and who could take advantage of it, but I really hope many of you got the opportunity to visit. It was a really great week, and they had some really cool events planned. Now, there's something else I kind of want to talk about, and this is the time of year when a certain team, the New York Yankees, planning their Old Timers Day. The second half is here, and we've talked about the possibility of teams rebounding or maintaining their lead. And I noticed with us entering prime summer dates, there was always one date. As a kid, I begged my dad to go to. And the Yankees had their annual Old Timers Day. It was usually in June or not much in July. I remember June or August, something like that. I always loved that game. Now, are you familiar with that? This is the part that I did not know. I thought, growing up, and even as an adult, that everyone had an Old Timers Day. Then I realized, wow, that's just a Yankee thing. No shit. Now, that's a shame because of the recognition that the Yankees gave former players and teams and the fans. It had to be one of the best loved days as far as an event. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about and you even wonder how it started, Yankee Stadium Old Timers Day roots can definitely be traced to 2 moments. And they were honoring basically dying ball players. Now, the first was on July 4th, 1939, which was Lou Gehrig Appreciation Day. Now, most baseball fans have heard that speech. The unforgettable part of that day was the iconic goodbye and his luckiest man on the face of the earth speech. The second game, that was like an old-timers game, was on April 27th, 1947. That was Babe Ruth Day. And it was proclaimed Babe Ruth Day across baseball. It wasn't just the Yankees. At that time, the commissioner was Happy Chandler, and he honored the Babe by declaring that day. Now, the Yankees general manager, Larry McPhail, announced that the Yankees would host their first Old Timers Day on September 28th of that same year. And this event would include an exhibition game between former players. So that was kind of cool. Now, the Yankees' Old Timers Day tradition has continued for either, as I say, it depends on what you consider the first one, for a whopping 75 or 83 years. And they had a 2-year interruption because of the COVID shit. Now, the Yankees, of course, took advantage of a string of star players. And they even had them, after Gehrig and Ruth. But you know what? It's not just a Yankee thing. All teams should be honoring their past star players. Can you imagine the Detroit Tigers, for one? That's another team that comes to mind right away with that awesome team of Al Kaline, Norm Cash, even Dick McAuliffe. They had some great teams. So, Joe DiMaggio's first Old Timers Day, it was in 1952. And he returned for the first time, which would have been the first of a long run of Old Timers Day. He returned every year until his death before the 1999 season. Now, except for 1988 when he was recovering from surgery, that span was 46 years. So that was the second longest number of appearances by any Yankee old-timer. Excuse me. Hector Lopez, an old-time performer there, he holds the actual record, appearing in 53 Yankees old-timers days from 1967 to 2019. That's wild. What game do I remember? Well, as a kid, we went to the 1973 game on August 11th against the Oakland A's. Why do I remember that game? Well, it was Old Timers Day, of course. Bobby Mercer and Thurman Munson were definitely my favorite players. But I wanted to see one player swing. I just wanted to see him swing. I was too young to see his career, but I wanted to see him swing in the Old Timers game. Who am I talking about? Mickey Mantle's final homer at Old Yankee Stadium in 1973. The Yankees had a longtime broadcaster named Mel Allen, and he had this widely recognized home run call, "It's going, it's going, it's gone." And that was announced at the Yankees' Old Timers Day. So, Whitey Ford took the mound, and, that was no strange sight. And who comes into the batter's box but Mickey Mantle? Now, Whitey Ford and Mickey Mantle were not the only former teammates. They weren't just former teammates. They were close friends and roommates for a long time. The stadium was going nuts. And there were over 46,293 fans at the old stadium. So they were watching all this take place. Whitey Ford threw a few pitches to Mantle, then boom, he hits a drive up into the upper deck, but it's foul. Now Mel Allen, the MC, he can be heard saying, "Straighten it out, Mick." Now the next pitch, Whitey Ford grooved it, and Mickey Mantle belted it about 25 rows back in the lower left field stands. Everybody's cheering. Mantle began his familiar head-down trot around the bases. And, it was sad. You could definitely notice a pronounced limp. And this was Mickey Mantle's final homer at and I'm going to say this is the original stadium. I know the Yankee Stadium has been refurbished a couple times and this and that, but this is the one with the poles you had to avoid. And it was huge. It was like 82,000 seats at one time. The original stadium was awesome. Now, what about the rest? The Yankees produced 76 old-timer days. For many years, players from other teams would attend wearing their own uniforms, which was also cool. But, by the 80s, they kind of discontinued this practice, and only Yankee players were honored from that point on. Today, the Yankees invite several dozen former players again, including many greats and fan favorites. And that's what it's all about, the fan favorites. And I think the players love being introduced to the crowd, you know? Former coaches, managers, trainers, broadcasters, they all participate in the festivity. You know, of course, they cater to the Hall of Famers or special honorees. They cap the celebration, which is how it concludes. And they receive the highest and the loudest standing ovations. And that makes perfect sense, right? But I'm always wondering, why didn't everyone else have an old timers day? And serious, I was oblivious to that. After moving to Atlanta, Siri's trying to have a conversation with me. So after moving to Atlanta, I noticed that the Braves did a very nice, similar event called Alumni Weekend. Now, the 2025 Braves Alumni Night will honor the 30th anniversary of the 1995 World Series Championship. And that's going to be on Friday, August 22nd. Members of the 1995 team, they're going to take part in a pregame parade through the Battery here in Atlanta and on-field ceremonies prior to the game. And that's really cool. They do a great effort with that. And since 2013, Major League Baseball Players Alumni Association has hosted more than 150 events, stadium events, for more than 3,000 players in the Alumni Day series. Now, they developed the Alumni Day series, and that's designed to promote, like I said, a forum for members to reconnect and learn about new Major League Baseball players, agenda, projects, and enjoy just a fun night at the ballpark and for the fans. Now, teams that are participating in this platform are the Arizona Diamondbacks, the Tampa Bay Rays, the Minnesota Twins, the Milwaukee Brewers, the Boston Red Sox, and the San Francisco Giants, and the above stated Atlanta Braves. They all have events of alumni weekends planned this year. Now, geez, if your team is not on this list and you wonder why not, contact your favorite team and ask them, why don't we have an old timers day event at our stadium? You know, in this day and age of all the shit we go through, it's nice to just go to the ballpark and enjoy this experience. These games, you know, it's like a flashback. You get a memory as a kid, hearing the old player names and laughing at what you remember and who you remember, right? Now, this should be a common enjoyment for all. You know, each team may not have a dying player declaring, I am the luckiest man on the face of the earth, but that's not necessary. Teams should honor their former players and be proud. It's something to think about. Well, this will wrap up our podcast for today. Thank you for joining us for our 26th episode of Season 2 of Mo's World, the Baseball Podcast. Our regular schedule for new episodes is every Friday, with each episode lasting approximately 20 minutes. We appreciate your support and encourage you to share the podcast with your friends. Our next episode will be released on Friday, July 25th. We look forward to seeing you then. In the meantime, ask yourself, whose world is it? It's Mo's World.